Welcome. You're watching Live Vegan Vibrantly, how to heal your body, eat deliciously, and become a leader in the movement. I am your host, Laura Christian Sainz, CEO and founder of Live Vegan Vibrantly. Allow me to introduce you to Dr. Will Tuttle. Dr. Tuttle is a visionary, speaker, educator, author, and musician, a former Zen monk with a PhD from UC Berkeley, and a vegan since 1980. His writings, music, and presentations focus on compassion, creativity, intuition, and the interconnectedness of social justice, animal liberation, environmental, health, spiritual, and peace issues. He is a recipient of the Courage of Conscious Award and the Empty Cages Award. His book, The World Peace Diet, offers a compelling and liberating new understanding of our food and our culture. It has been called one of the most important books of the 21st century, the foundation of a new society based on the truth of the interconnectedness of all life. It is the first book to make explicit the invisible connections between our culture, our food, and the source of broad range of problems and the way to a positive transformation in our individual and collective lives. Dr. Tuttle provides lecture presentations, workshops, trainings, effective activism, meditation, and intuition development worldwide. So without further ado, everyone, please welcome Dr. Will Tuttle. Hi, Dr. Tuttle. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes. Hi, Laura, and hello, everyone. Glad to be with you.
Likewise, we're so glad that you're here, and I love the work that you do. So you just recently got back from China and India. You're on a big lecture tour there, and I'd love to hear what were you lecturing about, and what did you witness, and what were some of the ahas that people came to, and what are you promoting out there?
Right. Yeah. It's there's really a lot to talk about, actually, and I'll just share some of the main points. You know, we were my wife Madeline and I traveled first to Europe for a few weeks, Spain, Switzerland, and England, and then we flew to Mumbai. We were in India for a couple of weeks. We did lectures every single day in quite a few different cities. I think it was about 11 different cities. And one of the things I discovered actually being in India is, even though people think of India, and rightly so, as being the foundation of vegetarianism, and really I think the vegetarian movement spread throughout the world, perhaps from India originally, going back a few thousand years, but the vegan movement in India is very new, very small, just getting started. We did, I believe, the very first ever nationwide vegan promoting tour that's ever been done in India, and it was excellent. I mean, we had a one man named Shankar, who's the founder of the only national vegan organization in India, and he organized the tour. And we traveled to a whole lot of different cities, Mumbai and Pune and Calcutta and Chennai and Hyderabad and Bangalore and all these different cities. And we promoted basically the ideas of veganism, which is questioning dairy production. And I think in India, people are very comfortable with vegetarianism in general, but dairy is so deeply rooted, and it's so threatening in many ways for people to hear the message that the holy dairy and the cow and Shiva and Krishna and so forth, and it's very much connected to their religious life as well as their secular life. But I discovered quite a few things that I think are helpful. One of them is, as in India, also I think in the rest of the world, that very often governments and corporations are behind it. And there was something in the 1950s that known as the Green Revolution that really harmed India a lot. It was when the government and the corporations and financial institutions made a big push to go away from small-scale, local, organic agriculture to more pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, and petroleum-based agriculture. And then in the 70s and 80s, there was something called the White Revolution, where the government decided that people just were not getting enough dairy. And so they instituted this whole big push to get people to eat a lot more dairy products and drink a lot more milk and eat a lot more cheese. And so the dairy consumption in India really skyrocketed in the 70s and 80s and 90s, and to the point now where India is the largest dairy consuming country probably in the world, the highest rates of diabetes. Really, it's pretty bad. I mean, the environment is suffering terribly. There's a lot of pollution. You see a lot of cows wandering around that are starving. And so essentially, we discovered, we saw all that. And then now they're in the middle of what's called the Red Revolution, which is the introduction of meat into India. And so there's Kentucky Fried Chicken, Burger King, McDonald's, and so forth are springing up everywhere too. So I think it was really great that we could be there. We worked with a lot of local activists in India. It was great to see so many young people who are avid vegans, and vegan restaurants beginning to spring up. But it's still, even in large cities like Mumbai with close to 20 million people, there's maybe 5 vegan restaurants in the whole city. So veganism is still young, but it is definitely growing. It's being pushed by, like it is here, by some doctors who see that and making the connections, and by people like myself and some animal rights activists also, who are working to help people see the benefits of a plant-based way of eating for the environment and for animals and for the local farmers. But there's still a lot of resistance there, and I just want to emphasize to everyone who's listening that it's really important, I think, to understand that veganism is a worldwide movement. It's growing everywhere very quickly. We have brothers and sisters, in a sense, who are working hard to try to bring veganism with beautiful creativity. Like when we were in Mumbai, for example, we were there for the launch of a huge 18-day vegan festival in Mumbai, where they were having over 100 events in 18 days with lots of cooking classes, lectures. The very first vegan to ever climb Mount Everest was there. And vegan doctors and just people who are creating vegan ice cream and vegan meats and all these kinds of things are promoting it. So they're learning from us. We're learning from them. I think there's a lot of cross-fertilization that can happen. It's really great to see local vegan groups starting. We actually started one when we were there, or we were instrumental in helping one to start in Gujarat. A vegan society based on the work of the World Peace Diet, and the book that I wrote, The World Peace Diet, is now being translated into Tamil, into Gujarati, and into Hindi, so it'll reach more people in India. So it's just great to see people willing to question the tradition, which takes a lot, I think, in India, because India is a very traditional society where if anyone eats differently than anyone else, it's like a big deal. It's not people aren't so independent like they are in the West. And then we went from there to Taiwan, Hong Kong, and China, and it's somewhat similar, although I have to say Taiwan is probably the most vegan-friendly country in the world. They have over 1,000 vegan and vegetarian restaurants in the little island of Taiwan. Extremely clean country. I mean, they're very friendly people, and a lot of vegan activism, large-scale support of veganism by the government, by most of the religion, which is Buddhist. They're all vegans. They're all promoting veganism. So there's literally thousands of groups and people promoting veganism in Taiwan, and we were part of it, but it's really doing well, I would say, there. And then we went to mainland China and Hong Kong, and I think basically they're doing great. It was, again, very creative, their activism. This is our 3rd time in China in the last year. They love the work that I'm doing with the World Peace Diet, and also I went with Madeline for the first time. We did a lot of concerts. They love the music. They're very creative. They're very free, happy people. I think we get this idea that somehow China is this grim, dark place, and it's not. People are very happy. They're promoting veganism and sustainability. They're planting trees. We saw literally millions and millions of trees being planted all over the country. Everywhere we went, they have these high-speed trains that go 200 miles an hour and connect all the cities. So instead of flying, we could take these high-speed trains, and we really saw a lot of southern and central China. And it's just great to see them caring so much about the environment now. Things have really changed in the last few years. A lot of solar panels everywhere, and like I said, planting trees. The government is mandating, this is an important point, that everyone reduce the amount of meat they're eating by half. When I would say, gosh, I wish the government of the United States was as wise as the government of China, everybody clapped in China. Because I think, that kind of really, encouraging people to reduce meat consumption, I think would be so great, if we would see that more in the West by the government. But in general, again, we saw very creative, freewheeling kind of activism. People are very creative and happy to dress up like vegetables and fruits, or dress up like animals and nature spirits, and sing songs and dance and get out and do playful things, and they just love the spiritual dimension. The World Peace Diet talks about veganism from the many points of view: the cultural, anthropological, historical, health, environmental, but also the psychological and spiritual and ethical dimensions, and they are very comfortable with that, both in India and China, and really encourage that. And I think, again, it's good to remember that China is a real ally, I think, in the vegan movement, and is actually the originator of veganism. Veganism came out of China originally. That's where it was born. When vegetarianism came from India to China, they were not doing dairy. They never had a dairy concept. So it was always plant-based, and it was for ethical reasons in the Buddhist, Taoist, and Confucian temples. And we also discovered that Confucianism, which we don't think of as a religion, but it really is a major world religion, Confucianism, based on the teachings of Confucius, they have, like, for example, not only do they have centers and temples, but they have a huge community that they're building in central China that is going to have thousands of people. They've already got over 4,000 acres. They've got millions of dollars invested, and it's going to be totally vegan and organic. The entire community, the whole city, basically, is going to be vegan and organic, and they're already, building it. I mean, there's already many buildings in place. Since they honor the elders, it's going to be a special place for vegan elders to go and live, and anyone can go there and live. So, these kinds of things we don't really see in the West too much, but they're going in China. And there's vegan schools. There's vegan, sanctuaries for animals that are done by the Buddhists. And so it's really, again, I just want to emphasize there's an enormous amount of progress that's being made in Asia. And I think we can learn from what they're doing. They're very cooperative. These people know how to cooperate. They have a knack of working together that I still marvel at. They put on many events. There was always anywhere from 300 to maybe 5 or 6 or sometimes as many as 800 people coming to hear my lectures. And they were very well organized with plenty of the food and always a grand piano on the stage for me to play. Excuse me. So, they really work so well together. And so I just want to say that I think in our movement we could learn a lot, I think, from the spiritual dimension, taking time to contemplate our life and to see the deeper connections of veganism to spirituality, and the importance of working together in harmony with each other and not criticizing each other. I think we can learn a lot from these people. So we're very inspired. We just got back, and we're actually planning a 3-month lecture tour in the United States through the southern United States in January, February, March, and April coming up. So for us, our whole life revolves around promoting vegan living, because I think it's the only way we're going to have a world for our children.
Absolutely, and thank you for saying that, because of course we're borrowing it from our children's children, not from our ancestors. So thank you for already making that point. So there's several things that I think I would love to touch on, that you have obviously a very deep knowledge about, even from the originality, and I'd love for you to talk about some of the deeper connections. So one of them being, like, how are the people in China who are creating these vegan communities cooperating, or some of the characteristics or ways of being that you're seeing them cooperate with each other? And spiritual, I know I'm kind of giving you like a 3-part thing because I know you'll go on for a while, but the spiritual aspect and how we're kind of still, even here in the Western part of the world, trying to just bring attention to how this, like you were saying about in India, with the animals, the animal agriculture and dairy, and how that's still suppressing women, and how that actually translates into suppressing women. So I know that's kind of like a big question, but I know that they all tie together.
Right. So I'll just say, I think veganism is basically love. It's basically caring. I say the key word in many ways is caring. Opening our heart to care for others, and really for ourselves, for our earth, for animals, for future generations, for hungry people, for slaughterhouse workers, for the whole web of life. And spirituality is also based on understanding directly the interconnectedness of all life, and that what I am is not just a physical object, just a thing, just a materialist something that was born and will die only. This materialist view, I think, was really promoted by the West, and it's something that has come out of the wounding that people in the West have endured for hundreds and thousands of years, which is the wounding of eating a lot of meat and dairy products. Because if we're eating a lot of meat and dairy products, and this goes on generation after generation after generation, we're basically creating and being born into a profoundly materialistic society that views beings not as beings, but as matter, as just physical objects. And this strips away the fundamental sense of purpose. It strips away the fundamental sense of dignity and respect for a living, conscious being who is the subject of their lives. And so when we're eating a lot of animal foods, meat, especially dairy products and eggs, as well as meat, animal flesh, we're basically being trained with every meal at a very deep ritualized level to see beings as things, to see a cow and a pig and a chicken and fish and so forth, not as beings to be respected, but as just as pieces of meat that are sold by the pound, or as milk machines or egg machines. That they don't matter. They're just here to give me something. And so when we're eating that every day, we're also eating the attitudes, we're eating the physical foods that are toxic, actually. And we know they're toxic, and I'm sure some of your guests are talking about the physical toxicities of animal-based foods, which are enormous. But then we're also eating attitudes that are toxic. We're eating an attitude of materialism, of might makes right, of disconnectedness, of repressing our natural wisdom, and also of the domination of the feminine, because you can't have animal agriculture without not only killing the animals, but impregnating them against their will, and stealing their babies, and stealing their purposes, stealing their milk and eggs and lives, and stealing everything. So it's this attitude of appropriation and exploitation and entitlement, and also of the domination of the dimension of consciousness that actually cares and loves and nurtures life, which is the feminine dimension, that is the core of animal agriculture. So when we're as little boys and little girls, so we're sitting at the table, we're learning at a very deep level not to care about others, to just stay shallow, to not make connections, to not care deeply or look deeply or feel deeply or listen deeply, and to suppress the sacred feminine dimension of consciousness in our own heart and being, so that we can compete in an economic system that turns everything into an instrument to be used. Whether it's a forest, or whether it's an animal, or whether it's myself. I have to write a resume and sell myself on basically a heartless market to try to get something for myself. And we see each other as objects to be manipulated as well. And so to fight against that, in a sense, or to, if we don't want to use the word fight, I think, because I don't really like using that word fight, but to basically see that there's another way of living that's based on a sense of awareness and being mindful and conscious and looking more deeply and cultivating joy and a sense of respect and caring for others and for oneself. That's what veganism is. It's seeing how our welfare is all interconnected. And so this, I think, naturally leads to seeing others as beings, and also to a sense of gratitude for this life, for each day that we have to celebrate, to learn, to grow, and to share in some way the message that is at the very core of veganism, which is that life is a gift. Yes. And that I'm glad that I've got this gift. And I know that other animals and other people are glad that they have the gift, and to respect that and to join together. So that's when the spirit, I think, of cooperation begins to come in. Because in the West, in school and everywhere, in business and so forth, we're really taught in many ways to compete and not to cooperate. And we are, in many ways, our families are fragmented, and we're eating by ourselves, and we're on our iPhones, and we're more and more fragmented. And I think this makes it difficult. This is part of the wounding, I think, that comes out of animal agriculture, out of centuries of this, where we have the domination of large institutions, corporations, and financial institutions that really thrive on people who don't make connections and will just buy products that are advertised and believe the official stories that are given to us. And so veganism is about questioning all this. It's questioning the official protein story, the official calcium story, the official might makes right story, the official human domination, male domination, all these stories, questioning everything. And I think this is what gives rise to spiritual wisdom, because what we're talking about with spirituality essentially is connecting with an inner knowing that's available. I refer to this as intuition. And my PhD at Berkeley was on educating intuition in adults. So I know that we live in a society where we prize rationality and logic and intellect. I mean, these are great tools, and I think it's great to be rational and logical. But if we were actually rational and logical.
It's okay. Yeah, please do.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah, if we human beings were actually really rational and logical, we'd all be vegan, right?
Yeah.
Because it's obviously logical. I mean, it's completely ridiculous to grow all this grain, to feed all these animals, eat their flesh, causes us diseases, it causes hunger, makes war, it's just totally illogical and irrational to be, So as vegans, we are being logical and rational. But the point is that at a deeper level, we have intuition, which is our connection with our the wisdom that we have that sees the interconnectedness of all life. And when we connect with our intuition, I think that's when we're sure to go vegan, because we see the bigger picture that our welfare is interconnected, and that the more I bless others, the more I'm blessed. The more I give to others, the more abundant my life will be. And the more I free others, the more liberated I will be. If we're enslaving others, we're going to be enslaved. And so the experience that I had in China and in India was with societies that are more traditional in the sense that they live together and eat together and are more connected with each other in communities still. They're less fragmented in their families. However, especially like, for example, in India, there's a lot of domination of the feminine. I mean, also in China, but in India especially, and I think it is connected perhaps to the dairy industry. I mean, the dairy industry is so strong in India. It's got such deep roots. And what is dairy? Dairy is the complete domination and exploitation of female animals, and specifically their reproductive organs. And so, there was a study done of the most dangerous cities in the world for women, and Delhi was #1 in the world. It's the most dangerous to be abused or raped, for example, as a woman in any city in the world. And I think there's connections here. When you have a lot of dairy, you're going to have a lot of abuse of women. And I think we have to realize that if we really want to work in a serious way for social justice issues like against sexism and against racism and against heterosexism or against classism, then going vegan is the foundation of that. It's a basic underlying principle, because if we're eating animal foods, we're eating the opposite of that mentality. We're eating the mentality of might makes right, of privilege and elitism, because the subtext of every meal is that certain beings are inherently superior and other beings are inherently inferior. And so, us as the inherently superior beings dominate and exploit the others inherently inferior beings. And so if we're feeding that to all the children and we're all eating that, then we're going to be creating contexts where we enact the same thing with each other. And so it's, I think, important to, again, go more deeply into the underlying understanding that we can cultivate and see that what we're eating and how we treat animals is really critically important, because that's our most basic connection with our society, with nature. And when we're eating something, it actually becomes the cells of this body. This body is built by bricks made of what we're eating. So if I'm eating these mentalities and these attitudes of violence and domination and exploitation and oppression of animals, and especially of female animals, then how is this body going to be capable, and the mind is going to be capable of anything else, of anything different? It's going to be very difficult. So there's so many levels to this. And being in China, being in India, I could see these being acted out. And also going to some of these ancient temples of wisdom, where people had been meditating really for centuries, living a vegan lifestyle for centuries. If you go back in ancient China, for example, there were monks going back 1,000 years. They were meditating and they were eating a totally plant-based diet, but the wealthy patrons would come who actually were supporting the temple, and they would want to be served food when they came to visit. And so the monks invented the very first faux meats, right? They invented for the very first time on planet Earth, vegan chicken and vegan pork and vegan fish, 1,000 years ago, to feed to these wealthy donors who wanted to eat meat, but they wanted it to be vegan. It was okay with them that it was vegan, because they understood that at a temple you could never, slaughter an animal or bring meat in. So we had, for the very first time, this kind of creative innovations to create foods that would please people who are used to eating animal foods that were still totally plant-based. And now in the West, we're just now beginning to catch up in many ways with China. They're 1,000 years ahead of us, on some of these things, and on principles of not wearing leather. And they didn't wear leather. They didn't wear wool and silk and so forth. They understood this, again, for thousands of, for at least 1,000 years. And so I think it's good for us to reach into our collective memory, to realize that veganism is not this newfangled evolution. It is on one level, it is that, but it's also a reconnection with our ancient wisdom, that we have roots that go back hundreds and thousands of years of wisdom, of harmony with nature, harmony with each other, harmony with ourselves, and that we're in many ways reconnecting or resurrecting that wisdom. I refer to this wisdom, this basic wisdom in the World Peace Diet, as Sophia. Sophia was the ancient Greek goddess of wisdom, and I think represents the sacred feminine wisdom within all human beings, whether they're men or women. This wisdom I think it's kind of epitomized in a mother who gives birth to this little being who is really nothing but a lot of trouble at every level. But what does she do? She loves this little being, and she takes care. And she gets up in the middle of the night and she changes her diapers or whatever it is, with this sense of love and caring. And we all know that this kind of giving and caring, love, is the foundation of every kind of health. If we do not get this when we're little kids, we're not going to be psychologically healthy. We're not going to be physically healthy. We're not going to have a healthy society. Everything will fall apart. It'll be complete terrible thing. So this kind of love is the key to our happiness. And I think the more we cultivate this kind of love, and the more we extend this kind of love to each other, to other people, to ourselves, and to animals, and to future generations, and ecosystems, and see the beauty of this world, and work hard to overcome our own wounding. See, that's the thing I want to just finally say here. In the vegan movement, I know in the West, it's based a lot on being healthy. It's based on a lot also on environmental and ethical concerns for the mistreatment of animals. But very often there's this strong kind of sense that I know what's right and you're wrong, and I'm going to do it this way and you shouldn't do it that way. And to realize that this tendency that we have to criticize or to blame or to shame or to judge other people is really part of the wounding that we received eating animal food. So that in going vegan, it's important not only to go vegan, but to also continue on the journey and continue to evolve so that our whole life becomes an expression of kindness and love, not only to the animals, the non-human animals, but also the human animals who happen to be around us, our friends and relatives and colleagues, that we truly make an effort to treat everyone with as much respect and kindness as we possibly can, because this is really the foundation of a life of harmony with each other. And that's what I see a lot of understanding of that in the East, and I think we're learning more about that in the West.
Very well said. And I think, too, where we're talking about consuming these animals and how it has created so much destruction or havoc, and a lot of the times people truly want to embrace this lifestyle. And one of the things that I really wanted to call forward to support people in this is, they fall off and get back on, and fall off and get back on. And I really want to point out some of the key things that you said here, because if you look below the surface of I don't know what to eat or whatever, they may feel I'm not worth it. But where are these feelings truly coming from? And you said they come from generation down to generation. And where are we making the animals worth it? Because we are what we're eating. So we're technically consuming all of this energy of non-worthiness. So women who are still suffering in abusive relationships, or they're not happy in the workplace, we're still not making the same, wage, to the dollar as our male, humans. So
exactly right.
What do you think about that, or what's some of your? And I know too, last year you pointed out how these practices in animal agriculture were first invented and used to bring in slavery and the Holocaust, and how it's just completely changed, really how I think we feel and function, and that connection.
Yeah. If we have time, I'll just say it briefly. I write in the World Peace Diet about how essentially we're born into a herding culture, and we're not taught that. It took me 30 years to figure that out, that we're born into a society that's organized at its core around herding animals. And this goes back 10,000 years to the Eastern Mediterranean, to the very sort of cradle of civilization, where we have the very first animal agriculture in what is today Iraq. And 5 things emerged through that revolution. One was the imprisonment of animals. So we're not hunting them, we're imprisoning them, we're herding them, we're confining them, we're impregnating them against their will, we're stealing their babies. So that took it took a few thousand years for this revolution, but it was about reducing animals. It was about a wealthy elite class that emerged that owned animals, and whoever owned the most animals was the wealthiest. And then they invented 2 more institutions. War had never been on planet Earth before, but the very first word for war is gavya, which the ancient Sanskrit word, it means the desire for more cows. And then slavery, whoever lost a war became, the human beings and the animals both became the property of the victors. And then also men began to see females as breeders, as objects to be impregnated and used, and because the baby goats and sheep and cows were wealth. And then, of course, you have slaves. The more slaves you have, the more wealth you have. So females began to be seen just as, and so even when we get to finally to the historic period where we have the very first writings, we can actually read. And I used to teach college courses on the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Iliad, the Odyssey, and so forth. We can read right there how men are buying and selling women just like cattle and sheep and goats. So men are taught to harden their hearts and to see females as objects, and women are unfortunately taught in many ways to be seen that way, which is part of the whole problem. And men are taught to emulate the role model of a hard, tough, disconnected male, and this very warlike, patriarchal, essentially capitalistic, because capita means head, as in head of sheep and goats. So this kind of corporations are emerge out of this as ways to avoid a responsibility. That's what a corporation is. It's a legal creation to avoid responsibility for our actions. And so this is all interconnected, and we've created this whole economic governmental system that's based on dominating and exploiting animals' nature and the feminine, and it concentrates wealth in the hands of a few, and we're all born into that, in a sense, competing, and we're wounded by it from the time we're little infants. So it's important to have compassion for each other, and to understand we're wounded, and these attitudes are injected into us by a culture that is obsolete. And so I think the most important thing is to see is that really there's two points of power. One point of power is the individual, myself. I can't really change anyone else, but I can change myself. And so to do the best we can through introspection and working with our feelings and thoughts and consciousness to bring our life into alignment with our values, to live a vegan life, not only by buying and eating foods that don't cause suffering, but also acting kindly and lovingly to others and with integrity and so forth. And then the second point of power is community. The only reason we're eating animal foods is because of the communities we're in. And by creating alternative communities, we can help plant seeds of healing. And that's what this is right now, what you're doing with this summit. This is a community of sanity, of sustainability, of freedom, of liberation, of the sacred feminine rising up and saying, I love life, I love the children, I love animals, I love, like myself, and I love all beings. And this creating, working on ourselves and then creating community. And then that's how we can transform our world. It's by working on ourselves, but then helping others through community and planting seeds, right? We can't change other people, but we can plant seeds of our own experience and share our experience and share our authenticity and how we live with love and respect for others. And we're seeing that happen. That's what I love. We just see that at a grassroots level, beneath the radar of the mass media in many ways, there's this beautiful flowering that's happening. People are waking up, they are reaching out, and it looks small, but it's growing very quickly. And I think, just to feed this however we can is the most important thing, and to try to have patience with the process, with ourselves and with others, realizing we've all been wounded. If you see somebody doing something you don't like, instead of getting angry, because they're wounded, so if they're wounded, you don't kick them, you try to heal them, bless them, send them some love, listen to their story, do the best we can to bring love to the situations. And I think together we can continue to transform the situation here, remembering that we're only, each one of us, here for a few years, right? We're here for maybe 70 or 80 years, whatever, something in that range. So to use every day, and it goes by very quickly, just use each day as best we can. And if we do that, I think we will have lived a life that we'll be glad that we've lived that life.
Yeah, just beautifully said. And, we wanted to give so much love to our men out there as well, because we need you. We all need each other, and we do want to heal each other, the planet. And that's why the first step, like you had said, it starts with healing, with love, and and working together with people. So what do you think, because I know that there's so many people that want to continue to grow the movement, and maybe they're not sure how, or how they want to get more involved, or maybe there's people that just say, well, I'm a factory worker, but I'm vegan, but I want to somehow spread the message. So what do you think in general would help support people in becoming like the leaders? Because really we are real teachers and leaders in the world.
I think you're a great example. You're like what you're doing. You're finding like you love to talk to people, and we have a technology today with the internet where we can reach out to so many other people in so many different ways, through social media, through YouTube videos, through summits like this. So I just think for everyone who wants to make a positive difference in the world, again, it's two things. The most important thing, I think, is just starting here. Because in many ways, the outer world is a mirror of the inner world. If we want to have a better outer world, if I go out there trying to change everybody else, it's going to be a big fight. If I work with myself, work with my own consciousness, I really think the foundation of the transformation that we want to see in the outer world is really inside. So I think getting informed, cleaning up our diet, so we're really eating not just a vegan, but a whole foods, organic, veganic as much as possible, growing our own food, supporting local people, eating a very clean, conscious way, also cultivating positive thoughts, creativity, connecting with nature, exercise, really cultivating positive relationships. People that are close to us, giving them lots of love and caring, creating a strong space of love around ourselves, in our life, building that, journaling, if that helps, starting in the morning, take an hour every morning to meditate, to connect, and really build a foundation personally. That's so important. We could never do what we're doing without, we have at least 2 hours every morning. We just focus on ourselves and the inner work, and I take an hour in silence every morning for sure, at least that, no matter what. And so I think that's the number one most important thing. And then use that to connect with intuition, with our inner wisdom, and then just feel into what is this life about? How can I give? I think each one of us has a piece of the puzzle. So just to feel into what my interests are, my strengths, not worry so much about making money. I think money will come, but maybe volunteering, maybe at a sanctuary, or handing out leaflets, or writing articles, or doing YouTubes, or talking to people, taking some cooking classes. Maybe you can teach cooking, or teaching yoga, or learning yoga, or there's so many different avenues. I think learning to maybe eventually we're going to need more and more people as coaches, as teachers, as mentors, as educators, as artists, musicians, video makers. There's a vast array of ways people can plug in. And I think as the vegan revolution, even Business Week magazine and The Economist and all these mainline organizations are all saying that veganism is a big coming trend. And I think so to realize that this is something you feel strongly about, to find a way you can contribute that you feel aligned with, and realizing that in many ways you have to roll up your sleeves and work. It's a lot about working every day, being persevering, like what we do. We write books and give lectures, but it's a ton of work. It's like we just did 75 events, and I set every one up myself. 75 events in 65 days and in 40 different cities. But it's not work, because what else am I going to do? I love it. It's so fun. It's like what we love to do. So it's just, I guess, getting clear about what it is that we love to do, and then just putting it out there as best we can. And the universe will back us up, I think, and then supporting other people who are doing something. I think it's great to support other vegan businesses, other vegan people doing different things. And as we support each other, we create a whole force field, an energy field, a consciousness field, a truth field. I call it the truth field. It's a field of truth that surrounds the planet. We're feeding that. I just have a new book that came out called Your Inner Islands, about developing intuition. And I think the more we can connect with our intuition and build that field within ourselves, the more we'll know what to do. And I think no one can tell someone else what they should do. That's something we each come up on our own and support each other in that.
I love it. Beautiful. And it's so true what you said, because even the people in China who are building the vegan communities, look at all of the different parts or jobs that have to be called in to put that vegan community in place, in a reality. Like even for, you said that the elderly too, and using that to help them heal, and it's just amazing.
Right.
So you can literally be anything. And I was just curious, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but the personal routine, what are some of the things that truly keep you grounded? And I know that it's work, like when you're in your passion and it's work, and sometimes things like, life happens. So I'm just curious, because you're an excellence with it, right? And you just developed this over time. How do you just so gracefully move and put on 75 lectures in 65 days? My hat just goes off to you for doing that. That's incredible. How do you keep yourself grounded?
There's I spent my entire 20s living in meditation centers, and I was a Zen monk in Korea. And at one point in my life, I had a shaved head. I had robes, and I was just meditating, 12 hours a day, and from 3 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night. So I spent a lot of time working with my mind, and I realized that my mind had been colonized by a very toxic cultural program, and I've been just working to free myself from that program. So it's just a lot of inner work, I guess, and seeing how my ego will rebel if someone says something to criticize me unjustly or something, but then I realized that's my stuff, it's not their fault. And so I think to to just work on our own consciousness is really the foundation. So I spend an hour every morning sitting in silence, just watching and listening as deeply as I can to the thought processes as they come up, and then just being aware of the space. And essentially, the image, in a sense, is that what we are, in a sense, is the sky. The sky is the infinite consciousness. That's our true nature. The clouds that come in, our thoughts, are always coming, but if we just let them go, we can realize that what we are is the infinite and eternal sky of consciousness. That's our true nature. We were never born and we will never die. We're manifesting for a little while on this planet through a physical vehicle. It may be male, it may be female, it may be tall, it may be short, it may be black, green, yellow, whatever. It may be a cow or pig or a human, whatever. We're a manifestation of consciousness. And so this is the vehicle we have. This is just a vehicle. It's not us. And so it's like a footprint. If you see a footprint in the sand, you don't say, "Hello, George." Somebody else made that. This is a footprint waving right now. This is not the being. You can never see the being that I am. We can never see each other. We see a footprint. And so to realize that, and realize that we are eternal consciousness, we don't need anything, right? I mean, our true nature is joy and happiness and love and awareness. And yet here we are, we're here to learn, in a sense, and to awaken and to contribute to healing. And so to just take an hour, I take an hour every morning just to focus on the deeper level of that. I also write in a journal every day, the things that I feel I want to write about, maybe what I'm grateful for, what comes up, but to kind of let my hand do some writing. I always do spend a good, I'd say maybe half an hour doing yoga, tai chi, some exercise, body, different things. I think it's really helpful to have that as a discipline. And I think having certain affirmations, or I say Buddhist, since I was a Zen Buddhist, just the paramitas, like the principles of living that I feel are rooted in wisdom and joy and freedom and gratitude and compassion, and the precepts of right living and so forth. I just remind myself. I have certain things I remind myself every day. I think it's helpful to just have these kind of reminders. And then I do other things too that I think are great, like for me, but I wouldn't recommend everybody do it. But for example, every day I take a cold shower for sure. Getting cold water every day. I think there's certain things that are really the mind hates it, but the body likes it. Something like something invigorating. Yeah. Try do challenging things. Try out new things. And I think traveling really is great. Being in other cultures where they have different assumptions about reality just kind of shows that how the mind gets in all these ruts. So break out of the ruts and play music. Every day I play the piano. I compose new things. I love I think being creative in some way, either through music or art or poetry or dance or movement or something. Do something creative every day. I think if every day we do something creative, if we connect with nature, if we do some meditation, if we're conscious about our food, really feed our relationships, people in our lives with love and caring, then we're creating a foundation, and our activism comes out of that. And it's just a beautiful flower. It's like one of the flowers in the garden of our life, and it's nothing separate. It's just we have to realize everything is connected. We can't be sort of kind and loving on the outside and then yell at somebody behind closed doors. It's like it's all interconnected, and the little things matter. If we want to be, some people say, "Oh, I don't feel like I'm loved. Nobody loves me." The way to be loved is to be loving. And then somebody say, "Well, there's nobody around me to love." I don't know. I say, "Oh, well, do you have a dish towel that you wash the dishes with?" Yeah. All right, then hang up the dish towel with love. Love the dish towel. If you can't love it, just do that. If we do that with love, and then let it go from there, and just try to extend love. I love going to the airport and just seeing, or wherever, or down the street, and just seeing, and just sending love to people. You don't have to say anything. Just wish them they're happy. Wish that they are healthy and happy, and just send it out, because everyone's suffering. Everyone has problems. Everyone has more problems than they would dare to tell you. So it's good just to send people love, and don't worry, you'll be taken care of. I think if the more we function in that way, I think the happier we'll be.
Wow, what a beautiful consciousness you are. Wow, thank you. Like, so you've expanded my mind, and you've given me so many things that I'd love to put into practice as well. And thank you so much. What a beautiful interview, and what a just beautiful share too that you've done with your life's work and what you've recently experienced. And I'm feeling so loved and calm and like peaceful right now. I hope that your energy just completely emanated through. I hope everybody else is receiving and feeling the same way. So with that being said, is there any, maybe like a quote or just something that you think you'd like to end the interview with, or send off the message to the world?
Thanks so much, Laura. Yeah, I think there's so many different things that really come together with what veganism is. And I think at its living core, it's just basically just realizing that all of us, all human beings, humans anyway, we've all been given this wonderful gift of a physical body that does not require any animal to suffer to get all the nutrients that we need to thrive and be healthy here. And yet all of us have been born into a culture where we've been forced to refuse that gift from the time we're little infants and stab and kill animals anyway. And now we can realize that it's not necessary, that we can treat other animals with love and respect, and ourselves. We can come back home to our true nature and live a life of kindness and respect. And it's not like anything to be proud of or not being better than anyone, but it's just coming home to our true nature. And now we can actually discover and really take the adventure of a human life on a whole other level. I think that's what I love about vegan living. It really creates a foundation where we are absolutely unlimited in what we can achieve in this lifetime, in terms of awareness and awakening and contributing and joy and freedom and abundance. Because once we stop taking out our wallet and paying others to abuse animals and bringing that in, it just removes the obstacle. So to just everyone, if you're listening, if you're watching, remember that joy is your true nature, and kindness and awareness and love and wisdom, and let that wisdom and love inform all of your actions. And together we are transforming our world. There's no question about it. This is a revolution of love, or an evolution of love. It's absolutely inevitable, and we're part of this movement. And so we can just give thanks knowing that we're part of an awakening on this beautiful earth of human consciousness, to create a world where we can celebrate our lives as we're intended to here. And to be able to contribute to that, I think, is a great gift.
Thank you so much. And how can we find you and learn more about your lectures and tours and what's coming up for you? And of course, the book. Everybody needs to have a copy of The World Peace Diet. And anything else you'd like to share?
Yeah, sure. It's just worldpeacediet.com, or my name, willtuttle.com. And Madeline and I, that's where our work is essentially. And the World Peace Diet is there. We have a couple of other books, Circles of Compassion, which is about social justice issues and veganism, and the brand new book, which is Your Inner Islands, about intuition. And then our tour schedule is there, and our training on becoming a World Peace Diet facilitator, which is online and self-paced. And a lot of people find that to be very helpful in deepening their understanding of these ideas and becoming. It's really focused on two things: thriving as a vegan in a not yet vegan world, and being a more effective advocate for veganism. And so I'm happy to work with people more there in the World Peace Diet trainings. And the World Peace Diet Circle we have also. So we have lots of ways we can stay in touch with people. My wonderful spouse, Madeline, has a lot of cooking videos and art, and she accompanies me on the silver flute, on the piano, and so we do quite a bit of traveling together. But it's like I say, we're happy to stay in touch with people and work together. Yeah.
And thank you so much for everything that you do. You are a gift, and thank you for doing all that work on yourself to reveal, the truth. So thank you. And thank you everyone for watching, and we will see you on the next interview.
Great. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.